All right. So this says that we are live. I trust
Yay.
that we are. I do want to see you. Perfect. Okay, there we are. Okay, so we are live. Let me also hit record. Okay. Okay, well, we are live and live. Perfect. Lisa, thank you so
Perfect.
much for being here. You're like a true goddess that's coming on the call from the lake, Your Majesty in all her glory. And thank you so much for bringing that relaxed vibe to the call. It's like,
Woo! And then I dropped it. The relaxed vibe that went overboard. Oh,
uh,
thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me and thanks for offering this up because I think what we're doing is so special and so unique for women to come together in this kind of a gathering and to explore all the possibilities of what there is out in the world.
yeah, yeah. So we're 10 days away from Sovereign. That's why my mind is like, we're building structures and prepping up all the lands and all the logistics, and then we're ready to welcome you, the other facilitators, to come here, the participants, and really create the magic. But it takes that like structure of the masculine energy and then the flow and the magic of the feminine to co-create this. So here we are.
Yeah, here
Oh,
we are. It's happening. And I mean, it's just
mhm.
so close, and I'm so excited for this.
Yeah, yeah. And it's important, I think, for us to gather in person again and redefine what sovereignty is, what embodiment is, what our pleasure is as evolutionary beings. I just feel like as we're evolving, things are shifting for a lot of people in the world right now. What is important to us? What truly matters? And how are we being nurtured? And so I'd love to go into that conversation with you because you work with tantra and pleasure, and you'll be bringing the yoni egg magic to the gathering. So I don't know where to start, but I would just say, what brought you to the tantric path, and why are you still on it?
Oh wow. So formally formally that was probably like a long time ago, about 18 years now, I think. And when I first took that first tantra class, and it was a women's gathering, it was a women's workshop. And when I entered into that place, I just knew this was something different and something unique. And also, as we started going through some of the things that we were doing and the practices, I was like, these are all practices I've been doing all my life. Where has this been all my life? And so, which was shocking because I feel like I'm educated and then I have a master's in anthropology. So I study cultures all over the world and I do all these things and I run these businesses and I do all this stuff. And I didn't know anything about Tantra, never had heard about it. And it was rather shocking to be in a group of women that were practicing something that I have practiced all my life. And when I say that, I mean that divine connection, sitting in that space and feeling that energy flow through my body. I didn't have the words and the vocabulary, the vernacular to talk about it freely with people because it was something that was different for me. And people I talked to a little bit about it didn't really know what I was talking about. So now I'm with this group of people who are just open, talking about all the stuff that I've been talking about for years. And so I knew
Mm.
immediately. And the facilitator of that was Caroline Muir, and she did Divine Feminine, Awakened Masculine was her school. And I went up to her after the class one day and I said, this is what I want to do when I grow up. How can you help me? And she said, great, we have a trainings that we do and the next one starts whenever, and it's in Hawaii. And I said, can I go? And she goes, we would love to have you. And that started me on that tantric path. And so I went into that. It was a teacher training workshop and I started that. And about halfway through her school, she said, I really need you to go to Charles Muir, who does Source School of Tantra. And I said, okay. And so I just followed what the guidance was. And the very first time I met Charles, he told me instantly, which, I didn't believe him. And I thought it was all this other stuff because I was in that space,
Mhm.
and he said, we're going to teach together. And I thought, I don't know anything about this. I can't do that. But I
Yeah.
finished my training with him and immediately became one of his staff members, one of
Mhm.
his co-teachers, and I co-taught with him for years. And
Mhm.
I became I was his level 2 certified teacher trainer. So I was the one that was certifying the next round of CTs that were coming in, and
Mhm.
and being in that space. And so it's been a
Amazing.
really great process. And why do I continue in it? Because I love it. I love it not just for me and the spiritual path that I'm on, but when I'm helping others and watching them go. Like I have a coaching call that I do every Monday, and I just did it with my group of women that were in there, and we were talking about orgasms and the different types of orgasms. And you know, I think everybody knows this stuff. I think everybody knows everything, and they don't. And so they're like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "Oh, let me take it back a few notches." And then I started unwinding and coming back into the space. And so we talked about orgasm on a completely different level. And
Mhm.
they were just like, wow, I just didn't know this. I didn't know this. So for me to help people, help women, help men, help everybody just
Mhm.
understand their bodies a little bit better, but
Mhm.
also what orgasmic energy does as far as our spiritual connection, and
Yeah.
how we can open up the channels with this orgasmic bliss to it being much more than just orgasm from sex. But like, I'm out here at the lake looking at this beautiful water and the sun shimmering on it, and it's orgasmic. And so
Yeah.
we get to explore things like that. And that's the other piece. There's so much fulfillment in watching people learn about this and have these experiences and then come back and go, wow, that was amazing. And I'm like,
Mhm.
you're amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Lisa, thank you. Thank you for
Hmm.
being the trailblazer and like, the pioneer on this path and still staying on it, because it's so important that we have examples in our life right now of, people that have been doing it and showing us the way, and still being fed by that orgasmic life force energy. I can
Yeah.
resonate with that too. When I just started some of the Tantra classes too, it was that deep remembering. Like it was like, why, where have I been? Like, where have you been all my life? And like, why is this not taught everywhere?
Right.
And then it's like all this like unpacking from this, societal thinking of, when I have the time, when I have enough money to go on vacations or live luxuriously or offer myself more space for pleasure, then I will do that. And it's a false thinking pattern, because
Right.
I think what Tantra does is it's reverse. It's that feminine way of like, let me fill up this vehicle first. Let me be, right, like full, my cup overflowing first, and then I can do more or do something in the world, but not this other way around. So that's been my path of like unlearning that whole thinking pattern.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I think that's critical in all of it. I mean, when people ask me what Tantra means to me, my answer is it's a weaving of all the wisdom and knowledge and blending it together to go on a spiritual journey. And that's what Tantra really means to me, is all these pieces that I've collected along the way have woven together to guide
Yeah.
me on the journey that I am on. And, I often say this is like, I choose to live an orgasmic, blissful life beyond my wildest dreams, beyond
Oh,
my
I
wildest
love that.
dreams,
Yeah.
because I can have this thought like, oh, I want to go do this thing. But as long
Hmm.
as I'm open in it, so many other things open and show up in
Hmm.
my life that I just can't even imagine.
Hmm. Hmm. So true. I love that you were saying it's actually a choice first. Like I'm choosing this,
Yeah.
again, and then being open to all possibilities.
Yeah.
Um, how do you think, or what do you see with the women you've worked with? How does it really impact the feminine nature? like when a woman is fully connected and owns her pleasure and her body, like very often, again, I love that you're mentioning, you talked about orgasm, and people are like, no, not everybody knows that kind of stuff.
Right.
So very often I feel like also women are somehow not as connected to all their body parts or don't fully know how they function. And then we expect that from our partners, and that puts a lot of pressure and a lot of miscommunication there that happens. But I think, again, it can be like an easier way of like connecting to our bodies and really tapping into that energy of pleasure and orgasmic energy. So what do you see in your work, like when a woman chooses that path and really connects to it?
Well, I think like I want to touch that, but that piece with that you talked about learning this. Why are we not learning this in schools and from our parents and from just society? And sex education is not this, right? This is not what they do in sex education. And I believe that it would be so much better if they did teach this in sex education. Teach you how to be present and aware and what this energy of sexuality is all about, and really tapping in. I mean, if you look back in history, the tantric tradition coming out of the Indus Valley hundreds of thousands of years ago, and having that village kind of person, the tantrika, teaching the young people about sex and about the energy around sex. Because I mean, tantra, we often associate sexuality with tantra, and I think that's the hook. That's what I tell people. The hook is the sexuality. You want to have better sex, learn some tantra. That's the hook. But tantra is so much deeper than that, right? Tantra really is the spiritual path. It's learning to master your sexual energy, learning to master the energy within you so that you can open up to the spiritual aspects that this life provides us, and that is available to each and every one of us. So for women, like especially for women, when they come in and start learning this stuff, and we are talking more deeply about orgasms, and that, most of the women that I've worked with don't, they've heard of vaginal orgasms, but they're not connected with it. And I believe that part of that is because we've been told, and I have a personal experience of a doctor telling me that there are no nerve endings in your vagina. And so what is that nonsense, right? I'm like, I feel things there. So there's been this path of telling us that we don't have sensation there. And so women have doubted themselves around their own sensations, and they've shut it down. When I talk about female ejaculation, most women, they've heard of it in some way or form, but they don't have an embodied experience of it. And so that's another piece. It's like we have this capacity to expand our sexual pleasures so much more. And somewhere along the line, it got pushed down. And there's several reasons why I think that happened, but we're opening back up, and things are changing. It's a new life. It's a new time. And we get to open this up and teach our women, teach our friends, teach our children, teach the women that are around that these are possibilities. And sexual pleasure is part of our natural birthright.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. This is music to my ears. I love it. Love it. Love it. Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm hearing, it starts with like conditioning and questioning, like who said what, and curiosity also, like just openness, curiosity about what else is possible, what's available. And I love this, like more of a gentle approach with the feminine sexuality, where it's not goal oriented necessarily. But there's compassion, there's playfulness, there is this like open field of exploration, which then invites little sensation to greater sensation to longer, ability to hold pleasure and ride the waves and so much more. And then it turns into almost like a lifestyle that, we can see and hear pleasure everywhere all around us.
I mean, it's right here. There's a lake right behind it. I mean, I'm having a hard time staying focused right here because this is happening over here. but
I should have
unbeatable.
joined you at the lake.
I know, it would have been so much fun.
20 minutes away from there.
Right,
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Oh gosh, but that's part of what we're going to be doing in this gathering, in the sovereign gathering, in the sovereign festival, is being out in nature, being in this beautiful place, and really noticing. Can you look at the tree and see the energy of the tree? And really, that is sexual energy. It's creative life force energy happening right there. Can you see it? Can you feel it? And can you embrace and embody the bliss that is there by looking at that tree and seeing that energy waves?
Yeah. Amazing. And there's something really powerful happens when there's a group of women, that there's that diversity. Like in nature, there's so much diversity. And when I'm looking into nature, like you're saying, I can see that there's not one tree that's fighting for more space, or that thinks that it's more appealing than that a tree. You know, there's none of that happening in nature.
Right.
Somehow, someone, you know, got that information into our ears that it should look a certain way, or we should feel sexier wearing or looking a certain way. And it screws women up so much. Like that mental pressure sometimes. To me, these feminine containers just showed me so much of how beautiful we are in our different colors, different skin colors, and our shapes of our breasts are so different. And just we're so gorgeous. To me, that's in awe of the whole cycle of women. It's just amazing how I've learned from it. And I've learned to embrace myself, not wanting to be anyone else than, you know, in this body right here where I live.
Right. And I mean, I know that I've had my ups and downs with, you know, my own, you know, I've gone through some changes. Like I'm getting older, and I went through this menopause. I had to have a hysterectomy. That was a crazy story, but it threw me into this, like a hard wall menopause, and things have changed and shifted in my body. And it took some time. It really took some time. And there's not a lot of women that I could talk to about this, because everybody's like, oh, you got to lose the weight, and you got to do this, and you got to do that. And I'm like, I hear you. And I'm embracing my body. Like, I'll tell you one thing that happened. My breasts grew really a lot in menopause. Like, I have the biggest breasts ever. They're bigger than when I was nursing my babies. I mean, this is like amazing. This is truly amazing. And I'm like, and people are telling me, you know, like, oh, and I have a little bit of it come into, like, you know, my belly's bigger, my thighs are bigger, this kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but look at these breasts. Look at these breasts. These are really amazing. You know, so can we embrace ourselves as women without this idea that we have to look a certain way, like what you were saying, that we have to have a certain thing or whatever? Can we embrace ourselves as we are? And yes, take care of the body. I'm all about taking care of the body and being healthy, but also, like, part of being healthy is honoring and accepting your body as it is. You know, and the weight came on, and the belly's changed, and these things have changed, and it's okay. It really is okay.
There's so much to say just there. I just find, you know, a lot of women go through such a hard time. I think it's actually one of the things that women struggle the most is that body image and the ideas that go with that. And, you know, either not being appreciated, or, you know, words can hurt women so badly. And yet there's so much there when we get to really accept who we are in the mirror. And, you know, I'm also getting like gray hair right now, and I don't want to dye my hair. There's something in me that says, no, I don't want to look like I was in my 20s. Like, no. I want to have that. I want to embrace the aging in a graceful and beautiful way. And even like the partners who I'm with, like, if they can see me and embrace me and love me for exactly who I am, and my you know, everything, the grace, the best, it's so beautiful. because I don't have to fit a mold or try to
Right.
pretend like somebody I'm not in skinny jeans when I'm hardly breathing. It's like, no, I can't do this anymore.
Well,
I
here's
can't.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, I did dye my hair for a while. My hair started turning gray when I was in my 20s. And so I started dyeing because that's what you did. But somewhere along the line, probably about 8 years ago, I was like, I am so sick of this. And I stopped, and I mean, I had to go through a process. It was a process to get all the dye out of my hair and just go natural. And then I went, I allowed it, and I'm like, gosh, it's really pretty. It really is. And then when I see pictures of myself with my dyed hair, it doesn't look natural. It doesn't look real. I'm like, oh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I just didn't
Yeah.
know. And except that at that time, I felt very, I felt very beautiful in
Yeah.
that moment too. And so just honor ourselves for wherever we are. I mean,
Mhm.
if we want to dye our hair, we have that
Yeah.
option that we can. And if we don't want to dye our hair, we don't have to.
Yeah.
And we can just allow and be in this. And I think what happened was my daughter, who's she also started getting she called it her silver hair, and then she called it her unicorn hairs. And so she started getting her unicorn hairs in high school. And she said, Mom, I'm not dyeing my hair. And I said, what okay, what's up for you? And she said, no, I've watched you go through this process and I don't want to do that. And so she's embraced her unicorn hairs since she was in her 20s, even before 20s, and allowed and just
Yeah.
allowed. And it's a really beautiful experience.
Yeah. I can feel that from women. And I have no problem with women, doing whatever they need to or want to do to their bodies. But I guess it's got to come from the right place and the right reason for you doing it for you, and not
Yeah.
maybe any other reason, because that
Yeah.
external love can never feel enough if we don't feel it in here first, right? Um,
Exactly.
yeah. Lisa, I can stay with you here forever.
I
Like,
know.
literally, I
That's what
gotta
I
just
was just
get in my car
thinking.
and get to the lake.
That's exactly what I was
One
thinking. I was
maybe,
like, I could talk to you forever. And we
yeah,
also have like things to do.
yeah. So maybe one last question about the yoni egg practice. So
Yeah.
maybe let's touch on that.
Okay.
Why do you work with the yoni egg? And maybe a little brief, like, what is it? I mean, I'm pretty sure people heard about it, maybe tried
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. So yoni eggs are stone eggs that we use in our vaginal canal to help us to connect with that part of our body. And when we have a feeling and sensation, I teach people how to activate that neural pathway. The neural pathways are already there. And what we're just doing is reconnecting and reminding our bodies that, yes, we can feel inside of our vagina. It's like what I was talking about earlier. If doctors have been telling us this, if the authorities have been telling women this, it's just been handed down for however long. And so this is something that we're working on, and we're healing in that aspect of, like, we do have sensation. The egg itself is I really recommend using an egg that doesn't have a hole in it with a string, and there's a whole process around that. And I will talk more about that during the class and why I do that. But I'll have some eggs at Sovereign for sale for people to purchase. But if you want one and you really, really want it, make sure you connect with me right away, because I don't have a lot. I've ordered some more, but I don't know if they're going to get here in time. So mine come from India, and a man makes them and he puts the intention into it that this egg will go to the exact right person that it needs to go for their healing process and for them to have the best experience ever. It's just a whole thing that I've worked with this man for a while.
Yeah.
And so we want to continue to do that. But
what stone do you use?
There are a variety of stones. So when I have people buy a stone, it's more on feeling it rather than looking at it. Because as women, I want the pretty one. But I suggest that people actually hold an egg and ask their yoni, is this the one for me? Is this right? And usually it's a first egg that they've touched anyway. And then they will come back to that one. But we go through a whole process around that as well. And so there's various stones. Now, originally, this was done with just jade eggs in the original practices centuries ago. And they were done with the concubines of the emperor of China, right? So that they would have a stronger yoni and they would be able to do different things for the man. So this was a practice that was more geared for men. But as women were doing it, they started noticing other things that were happening in their bodies. And they're like, wow, this is pretty spectacular. So then they were learning how to activate this sexual energy, move it through their bodies, and have bigger and better experiences in their lives. Probably connecting with source, connecting in that spiritual way. And that's what I emphasize in the classes, is that yes, there are pony tricks, if you will, that you can do with the eggs that I'll talk about. But really, this is a way for us to connect with our bodies and to be in that. And I also want to emphasize that you don't need to have a yoni egg to do any of this. You can do it without the egg, just by doing the practices itself, learning more about the musculature in your pelvic floor so that you can access that and activate these different areas that we will go deeper and deeper into. The practices, I mean, I love using my yoni eggs, and I probably have 10 or 15 laying around that are my personal eggs. Because I personally love the practice. So I like to continue to do that. And again, I had a hysterectomy and I lost all of those parts of my body physically, but energetically they still exist. So this is a practice that anybody can do, any woman can do. My cervix has now been removed, so I don't have cervix, and there's some different things that happen as a result of that, but it still is a unique practice that we get to expand in and we get to really learn. And like I said, and you can do it with an egg or you don't have to do it with an egg. And I really emphasize that, because it's not really, the egg isn't really doing the thing. The person is doing the thing. The woman is doing the practice. The egg is just the tool that we use sometimes.
Amazing. Lisa, I'm so grateful for the practices that you're bringing, for the pleasure, for the feminine. I'm a visual person, so I see it's like the ripple effect, right? That just keeps on giving when a woman can reclaim her pleasure. And very often when we hear, when we talk about pleasure, the first thing that comes up is, I don't have the right partner, or they're not doing the right thing. And I love coming back to those practices that, honey, you've had the power all along. It's always about you, baby. So starting with the yoni egg, or like you said, with a tool or without the tool, but just like, our own solo practice and reclaiming that time, the space, and the willingness for ourselves is a great start. It's a great place to come back to come from. And thank you so much for bringing that to the gathering. I can't wait.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited for this gathering, for us to all be together and to hang out and do the things. All the things, because there's so many really cool things that are happening with this. I'm so excited.
So much gratitude. So we are 10 days away. Tickets are on sale. We have about 20 tickets left. The link is somewhere in the bio, or is going to be linked to the video somewhere above or below. We look forward to offering all the gifts. The schedule is also on the website. So, I mean, just for the value of, the price is ridiculous. Like what people are getting, and the amount of workshops and hours, and like just they all the years of the collective wisdom that we're pouring into this is incredible. So I
Yeah.
say go for it, whether you're nervous or you're excited or, all the feelings are welcome. It's going to be well held. And we're really looking forward to co-creating this together because it's
Yeah.
also about the energy of the participants and the facilitators, and so many elements are at play. So thank you,
Awesome.
Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll